Hi, today we're talking to Lynton Joseph. He's the CEO of AATC, the Australasian Academy of Tennis Coaches, as well as being a junior secretary here at East Coburg Tennis Club in Melbourne, Victoria. He's got some tremendous insights about running a tennis club, both here in Australia as well as more broadly across Asia. Let's have a chat with him.
And I just love your flashy ways. Guess that's why they're broken, you're so paid.
Lynton, hi, how are you?
Good, Isaac. How are you?
Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure.
Your background is really interesting, so I'm really keen to dive in and hear about some of your insights, not only about running tennis clubs, but also AATC and what you do with Australasian tennis. But let's start at the start. Where did you come from? You said you were brought up around Coburg. We're in East Coburg Tennis Club. And you were brought up around here?
Yeah. So, I was born in India, and we migrated here in 1971.
How old were you?
1.5.
Yeah.
It was a tough decision
Yeah.
at the time. We're very lucky to come to such a country with so much opportunity, and it was probably 6 years later I probably started playing tennis at this particular venue, and it's not just tennis, all kinds of sport, and that's just because places like Australia give you that chance to experience, and since then that's where I suppose the tennis journey commenced.
Yeah,
We've always lived around the Coburg area.
Yeah.
Haven't moved from here. Probably stay here until the end.
Yeah.
Maybe get the ashes spread on these courts, but we'll see.
Yeah, right. And so what happened, like in high school? I suppose you were playing football because you represented the VAFA and those sorts of things, but then the calling from tennis, was that all the way through sort of school, or? Yeah,
well, I was playing football when I was 6, and I remember my folks weren't too happy with it, being probably the smallest kid, still being the smallest kid or person. So at church they manipulated one of the tennis people to come and talk to me about coming and trying out tennis. So the plan was to phase out football, play tennis, but I played football maybe till I was about 22, 23, and I loved it, and I played a lot of hockey and I played a lot of cricket because I love the team aspect, whereas tennis doesn't quite have that team aspect, but it has that development, that journey, that learning curve, that self-realisation where you have to solve problems yourself. So playing tennis, being an Indian with that cultural background, you want to do what your parents want. So you appease them and you still do what you want to do as well, which is playing any sport possible, make friends, learn. I mean, even now you put the TV on, you watch a documentary or you watch sport, it's a no-brainer as far as my household goes.
Yeah, right. And so you're playing footy, 22, you're playing all these other sports as well. How did you decide to do tennis? Were you studying as well? Like, did you try other jobs? Like, what made you... So maybe we'll step back a step. AATC, Australasian Tennis Academy. Do you want to just give us a little bit, what's your 2-minute pitch with that?
Well, when I was 16, I had my first assistant coaching job, and 3 hours into that coaching assistant job was my first experience of getting fired. So, and it got me thinking, and it was always there in the back of my head that you need to be educated, you need experience, you need resources, you need to be shown, and you need to be nurtured, and you need to be given opportunity, and you need to be just shown a lot of faith in. So AATC pretty much allows people from any background, just having an enthusiasm for the sport, to participate and do some sort of course or workshop or get an introduction into what they can do to contribute to tennis. So when we provide the courses, mainly overseas, we try and explain that it's not about the elite athlete. There's so much you can do. You can do sports administration, volunteer work, sports medicine, you just have a skill for life, those kind of things. So at AATC, the motto is opening the door to tennis, and we feel we do that by allowing everyone to come through our doors, and we give them what we can, and they go away with an experience rather than being elitist, establishment type mentality, ego driven, and say, it's us and them, and everyone's on a level playing field.
Yeah.
I suppose I'm fortunate enough that I've grown up in a sporting environment that allows me to be involved and play the sport I love. Others haven't had that opportunity, but they can start later and join in. It's like me meeting someone who's half my age, the only reason I've got a bit more experience than him is because I was born X amount of years before them. And that's what it boils down to. And it doesn't mean someone half my age is not going to contribute. So every course we go to, we want to teach, but we want to come away learning. Mm-hmm. And if we've done that, it's been a successful experience for everyone.
Yeah, okay. And so studying AATC, I'd imagine Indian background, that isn't really what your parents were hoping that you would turn into. So what's the timeline there from, leaving school to studying a tennis academy?
Well, when I left school, I studied to be a nurse, and I did that for 2 years and became a state enrolled nurse. And that stems back to the Indian mentality of having a conservative lifestyle. So once I dropped out of the nursing course, I got a government job, and that appeased the Indian family. But our experiences in India is that the mentality of the Indians are changing. So academics is not the only pathway in life now. Sport is a real pathway, provides real opportunity, and that's opened the door for us to get into places like India, China, Singapore, Malaysia. So understanding that my lifestyle, my life is hand in hand with the way the Indian mentality is changing overseas too.
Okay. And so what's your timeline to start up the tennis academy?
Well, I always had my local business,
yeah.
So I've probably been doing that since 1991. AATC's only been born since March the 10th, 2010.
Okay.
Our timeline is to have a different country every year. And so far we're in 8 countries if you include Australia after 8 years. So we're sort of following that timeline, and now we're starting to go further beyond coach education. We're looking at international tours, we're looking at business appraisals, we're looking at camps, and we're looking at tours both ways, I guess. And now also possibly franchising the brand. Yeah,
great. So we'll just stick with the timeline if we can, because in 98 I think you joined your sort of first committee role on a club, and you sort of joined your club's various committee roles that you've had over the years as secretary and treasurer and what have you. And obviously with AATC you go around and engage with lots and lots of different types of tennis clubs. I'm sure that they come in all shapes and sizes, especially now that you're in India and Malaysia and soon China and so on. What makes, in your mind, what makes a good tennis club?
The people. The people make a huge difference. If you've got the right people in any organisation.
Running the club?
No, just being involved. Being involved with a passion, and it's not hard. It's not hard. The rule of thumb is if you get a volunteer that's prepared to give you 5 minutes of their time, that 5 minutes is valuable. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you say, I want more, you're making a mistake with that decision there.
Yeah, okay. And obviously East Coburg's sort of a small club room, like it's not amazingly well furnished, with due respect. How do you see a club like this versus some of the bigger clubs around Melbourne that I've seen? Some of the better furnished, shall I say, than East Coburg. How does tennis clubs contend with each other from that perspective?
It's probably a lot like people and the socio-economics. You've got someone who's well-to-do, someone less well-to-do. You're making a judgment call, and there's no need. You've got to look at the heart in between, inside, what makes the club, and why you would stay at a smaller-looking club compared to a bigger club. It's really what you want to get out of it. And this place has got a lot of heart and a lot of soul, and it's got a great community. And the minute you want something done, the community puts their hand up around here and get involved.
Yeah, so how do you build that culture? How does a club build that culture where you can attract those sorts of people that want those sorts of outcomes? Because, I'm sure you've seen enough parents that want the next Roger Federer or Serena Williams that don't really care too much, I'd imagine, about the club culture. They just want little Johnny or Lucy to get high performance training. How do you build that culture? Or have a combination of both high performance and...
Yeah, I used to focus on both. I don't focus on the high performance as much anymore. It's a case of putting all your eggs in one basket or not. I think you take away your title, you take away what you do, and you just do, and people see you doing, it's irrelevant. So I've been called all sorts of names in terms of what people think my role is here. But if you're doing something and people seeing you doing something, it's going to bring people along for the ride a lot of the time, and you can't beat that. You can't legislate for that.
Mm-hmm. Focusing in on the committees, so you're the secretary here?
I was.
You were? And you've sort of had various roles, like I said, over the years. What makes a good committee for a tennis club, do you think?
I think you've got to work together, have a vision, you've got to have a plan, strategic plan, you've got to have what you want to do, achieve this year, what do you want to achieve in 3 years, what do you want to achieve in 5 years. That's sort of what's got to be. So everyone's got to know what their role is and what they want to achieve. Mm-hmm. You can't have people pulling it different ways, and that's going to hold you back. And that's where you lose out compared to other clubs, if you were going to compare yourself to another club.
When you go overseas to India, like we visited tennis clubs in India, along with other countries like Malaysia and all these other places that you guys operate in. When it comes to looking at the tennis club, because obviously in India there's some really nice, beautiful old English style tennis clubs and what have you, and they're run very traditionally, I think. And obviously there's these new upstarts in China and so on that they're trying to work out the best way to create tennis in their country. What's your sort of suggestions or tips to, let's say, China, where they're building new clubs? What are your suggestions to have that flourish for them?
In India?
In China, sorry.
Well,
if I'm the Chinese government, I'm saying build some tennis clubs. How do you build that culture or that club to attract people to enjoy the game of tennis?
If you compare the facilities we've been to in China compared to India, at the moment what we've seen in China, it's a little bit different to what you have to do in India. So in China you've got the established centres, you've got the top level centres. So for instance, we were working in China last month and it was pretty hot, pretty warm. We just click our fingers and we're indoors, working indoor courts. There was no problem at all. Drinks were brought to us, facilities were great there. At the end of the day we can just hop in the pool, we can just go in the air-conditioned players' lounge. And it was real state-of-the-art where the ATP players play their tournaments. Mm-hmm. In India, it's a little bit, like you said, it's run in an established way. So we worked at a centre where Sachin Tendulkar, the cricketer, played cricket next door and had that real culture to it. And the courts there to say had a lot of character. I mean, you've got a 3-court complex, and the coaches there have their washing on the line across the court, and it was brilliant. And it was just brilliant. It was, yeah. And we would have the coaches we were working with sing the national anthem for us with respect, stand up, put their hand on their chest, and have so much pride in their country. And again, it goes back to the question about how the other club's doing. There's no comparison because what you've got and what cards you're dealt with, you make the most of it, you make the best of it, and still we wouldn't say China is better than the Indian experience. They've both got, so much passion, energy that we love, and that we don't really judge on that because we're dealing with people, and we want to make them better 5 minutes later than what they were 5 minutes before. And if we can do that, we've made a difference there. So the facilities are irrelevant. There's always going to be the haves and the have-nots. And from I suppose a socialist view, it's totally irrelevant from where we're coming from. It's got to be how much information did they get, what kind of experience did they have, have they got a philosophy that's going to help them develop the next generation of tennis players. It doesn't have to be the elite player, but someone who's going to be involved in the sport or any sport for a long period of time. Are you teaching leadership? Are you teaching trust, loyalty, inclusion? All those kind of things are really important in society, not just in tennis. Yeah. I mean, tennis is a lonely sport. I see kids playing tournaments, and I've been on the seniors tour where I've seen seniors play tournaments. And unless you're in the niche or the in crowd, you can be washed away and be lost to the sport because you just might feel you don't belong. Yeah. And that's a real concern. And we had a holiday program here yesterday, and just observing the children, one boy was sitting in the corner and so was another boy. And you sort of think, well, they're not really having a good time because the other kids are laughing and joking. So making a difference, getting those two children to actually communicate and become besties for the day makes a big difference to their experience. So then they may not be the best tennis players in the world, but they've just had an experience that makes them love tennis. Yeah. That experience there. And I got an email last night from the mum saying that the boy made a new friend because I followed up, and that's enough. I think,
that's pretty rewarding.
It is.
Yeah. So structuring classes, if we can go down into tennis, structuring classes, like I don't know anything about running tennis, but we have with Tidy HQ, we have lots of tennis clubs using us to run their operations, including East Coburg.
Yeah.
We also see, with most of these tennis clubs, it would seem, there's a guy like yourself that's effectively contracted to or through the tennis club. How do those relationships work, and what would you suggest to the other tennis clubs that may be watching, or other groups that sort of have similar sort of relationships with contractors? How do you make that work, and how can that work best, and what do you think the future holds for that sort of relationship?
It's a hard one. I think the coach has to get down and dirty and do things. And so as the club coach here and my staff, we have a role to play. And our role is being really involved in the juniors, developing the club membership. That's really important. Speaking with the committee, having that opening the lines of communication. If there's no communication, that's a real problem, because committees can come and go. Every AGM, someone can put their hand up, I'd like to go on the committee. Then the following year they can say, no, don't want to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. Whereas I can't say, I don't want to do this for this week. Yeah. I've got to keep doing it. And that's a real difference compared to other centres in other countries where you have a direct lease with councils or municipalities or governments. Here, you have to deal with changing committee every 12 months. Sure. You have to make sure that you're doing the right things, that you're managing the place well, that you're developing people within the club, you're bringing people in, you're bringing revenue in through court hire, through memberships, through social tennis, and just having that participation levels grow up. So we think we've just hit the top 50 clubs in Victoria with our participation numbers. We're waiting for that list to come out from Tennis Victoria later this week or next week, and where we weren't in the top 100 this time last year, we might have come in the top 50, and we're fingers crossed that that's the case.
It's a pretty excellent thing to be aspiring towards as a club. I'd never even thought of that. Running my football club, for example, that wouldn't have been something that we had put up to aspire to. So that's an interesting insight. With Tennis Australia, so they run one of the best events in the world probably, and really puts Melbourne on the map with respect to the competition, the Australian Open. It's an amazingly well-run competition from what I can see. And like Sean Callanan in a previous interview said that it really is one of those things that puts Melbourne on the map globally as being a sports mecca for the world. The Tennis Australia raises a huge amount of capital through that. How does that sort of dissipate through? Because all these sports have the similar problem. The big sports like AFL, they struggle to sort of illustrate how they're getting funds to Grassroots. Can you give me a little bit of insight to Tennis Australia? Obviously, it's a bit rough for you because you're a contractor that's not quite in the Tennis Australia circle, so to speak. Like, what's your view on those sorts of things?
Well, I'm a Tennis Australia member and a coach, and I'm proud to be as well as AATC. They do get a lot of funding from the Australian Open. It's the best run tournament in the world. It's amazing when you go down there. In terms of what comes down the Grassroots, so it was interesting watching Ash Barty win last night, and it's great for Australian tennis. But it begged the question, is what do we get from that win, from that experience? Yes, during Australian Open we get a lot of people come through the gates, a lot of people. But then, through winter, numbers drop off because of the weather. Parents get a bit precious with their children. Over here we experience Ramadan, the Muslim festival, that children have a break from tennis. And these are things we prepare for, but with the funding that comes down, you've got Tennis Victoria that do an amazing job, that they give us their own participation leaders who work with the coaches and the club to try and build up their programs. But in terms of what a first round loser gets, it's a lot of money. I'd like to see, in a perfect world, go back to the amateur status and see who really wants to play the sport, who really loves the sport, and that's important. But that's not going to happen. I mean, you just see LeBron James, how much he's got paid. What's it, 208 mil?
Yeah,
that's great for him. But there's a lot of poverty around. There's a lot of people who
Yeah.
have to, no shelter, are struggling, and it's. What's the right answer? I don't know what the right answer is. But getting back to your question is, there's a lot of money there. There's a lot of tennis clubs out there too. So if I'm not happy with a customer, or they're not happy with me, there's choice.
Yeah.
There's choice, and they can take choice. And it's up to us as a club, and going back to our numbers going up. The reason we want the numbers is to get the grants. The reason we get the grants is we can possibly get more tennis courts so that we can service a growing community. The numbers here are increasing. You only have to look on the road. The traffic is bigger, is greater, and it's getting from A to B is not as quick as it used to be. People are on their phones a lot. People are not seeing what's going on in the world anymore. It's a little bit. They're reading about it, but they're not really being a part of it.
Yeah.
Having a conversation with someone's a new thing. It is.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
And I'll just stick with memberships or members for a while. So how do you convert those passive people that have a passing interest in tennis, a bit like myself, into an active participant of tennis and ultimately a member of the club?
I think the gyms and the fitness industry have got it right. They have the weekly membership, the monthly membership. We're old school, 12 monthly membership. You have to be a member for 12 months.
Yeah.
If we can get that across the line as a tennis club, and I'm talking tennis clubs generally, that's going to be attractive to the casual member. So the member that comes because they saw Australian Open, wants to play tennis, they can take up a membership, but they're not going to use their membership more times than not. I've put too many people through here. I don't see them again until the weather's better. So let's give them something that's going to, what they actually can benefit from and what they can use. We'll still get revenue coming in, and that'll help the club survive, but what does the public want? What does the average tennis player want? What does the social tennis player want? We should be able to give that, otherwise you go somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really interesting model. I suppose sports doing it more short term in the game form, which is Big Bash cricket and dare I say AFLX and hot shots and all sorts of things to sort of shorten the game and package it smaller. It makes sense to do the same thing with your membership base and all those sorts of things as well. So, how do you see the future of tennis in Australia? Obviously, you've seen it, and we'll touch on Asia afterwards, but how do you see the future of tennis in Australia? Every year we see the next young upstart, disappoint us, and all the rest of it from a high performance point of view. And, the rest of Australia begs the question, where's our next Pat Rafter or Leighton Hewitt or whoever it is, Nick Kyrgios, coming from without the attitude? What's the future of tennis, both on a high performance as well as a broader participation point of view, do you think?
Well, you got to hope you're going to have someone special come along, and that's what it takes, someone special who's got that work ethic, because nothing beats hard work, talent doesn't. You need to put the hard work in, and if you've got someone with a little bit of talent who can work hard, it doesn't matter where they grow up, it doesn't matter if they're Australian or not. You want to see pure tennis. You want to see, like, everyone loves Roger Federer and Rafa. They're not Australian, but because they're elite, people love that. Having someone, we can import someone from overseas, make them Australian, or we can develop some from here and build them up. It just takes that little bit of luck. You need a lot of luck, actually. You need finances. You need a lot of luck. You need to be injury free, because it's tough out there. It's tough. I mean, what a lot of people don't realise is earning a living from that level. You need to probably be top 80 at least to earn a decent living. So from that viewpoint, it is tough.
Yeah.
I think we're all pretty successful in the fact that we, and without being offensive, I always say that we beat so many other sperm to get to the egg, and that's an achievement in itself.
Yeah.
And I can't swim, so when I look at it that way, just being a part of the human race is pretty special. And I look at it this way: I hope to be on this earth for another 30 or 40 years. So I can achieve so much more in 30 or 40 years, having that mentality. And if people can have that mentality and see what you can achieve, we only make Roger Federer the best player in the world because we judge that, okay, you're a good tennis player, you're the best at that. But if we all of a sudden change the rules and basically said, okay, you had to hit the ball on a line, and this is not a real example, that makes you the best tennis player in the world, and you get judged that way. But everyone's got something they can contribute. Everyone. But what is it? You know, what have you made a difference to someone? Have you made a difference to someone's day today? Have you or have you not?
Yeah.
These are things.
Yeah, that's great. How do you see the future of tennis playing out around Asia then? You know, maybe we can talk about each of the countries a little bit, but, you know, just your 30-second synopsis of some of the countries you guys work in.
Yeah, well, that's an easy one for me to answer. I love it. I love what I see there. I love they yearn to learn. The passion there is amazing.
Where are we talking about?
We're talking India and we're talking China. We just find that those two countries, China will be the next one. India is a little bit harder. The facilities
with respect to what?
Facilities.
Yeah.
Opportunity. And India is quite a rich country, but it's the opportunity and the facilities that are there. So what we're putting in place is education that helps the coaches go away and use our brand and use our lessons and use what we prepare for them to have the bigger the numbers. So that pyramid example, the more coaches out there, the more opportunity. And if they're using the right model and they've got the right passion and energy to get these kids across the line, then each kid's going to push up, and that's what's going to get the strength. In China, they've got the best facilities, so it's ready-made. People want to come there and start playing tennis. They see, you know, the Li Nars, the players that are successful. India had the Leander Paces, the Armitage brothers, the Krishnans back in the day. So that's died off. But cricket's always going to be number one there, isn't it? So if we think in Asia, that would be, and we hope to think that we've had some sort of stamp that's helped that development down the track.
Well, it sounds like you're making a stamp through Asia and opening it all up.
Yeah.
Just wrapping it up, you spoke a little bit more about the impact that tennis has had on you and on your life, and there's a pretty great story. I think it's a great story, close to home for you, with the Tennis Victoria really getting around you, supporting. Your family had a bit of an issue, and Tennis Victoria and the club really got around you and supported you. And I really feel that that's kind of a reflection of why you're a part of the club.
Yeah, well, 2 years ago we had a son that you know, well, he wasn't breathing when he came out, and Jonty, and so we had a charity day called the longest rally for SANS. SANS sort of helped us get through that process, stillborn and neonatal death support, and we raised about 10 grand through the community, the tennis community, and Tennis Victoria helped, and a lot of people helped, and you know, that was, the last 2 years have been pretty tough. I can honestly say I went through a real, probably depressed stage, and now, you know, we got over that. We've had twins this year, 2 lovely, beautiful girls. But you know, you always still remember and you reflect and you acknowledge. And even when we had Monique and Heidi, we were still thinking, oh geez, there's another 6 Australians that have experienced what we experienced, and we wanted people. We didn't just want to raise the funds. We wanted to raise awareness. This happens, you know, it happens a lot, and people don't talk about it, and people don't realise the burden, and it can have a taboo on the mother that they're not healthy or they're not right or something, but it happens. And we're not even talking about miscarriages. We're not even talking about deaths that happen after they've been alive for 28 days. We're talking about that was just stillborn stats. I mean, the stats are huge, and we've met some really amazing people that have gone through this journey more than once, and you know, I can't imagine happening more than once. And even with Monique and Heidi, I've never been pessimistic, but I was always thinking the worst through this pregnancy, and it wasn't until we held the two that, you know, it was
it's great, a great ending, and I think that's illustrative of what being part of a community and being part of a community club and is all about, is that when you're in need and maybe you're feeling a little bit down about things. I know it's happened to me. That's a large reason why I started Tidy and continue with Tidy HQ, is because of what the community's given me, not dissimilar to yourself. And I think that's a really key part of, and I think sometimes it's missing with the discussions around community clubs, and what makes them so good is that they're effectively family in a lot of ways, and they're there to support you in various times of need and all those sorts of things. And I think I was thinking about this last night a little bit, was ultimately clubs are a place of love, and sport really, when it comes down to it, put away the high performance things for a moment. It really is about love, and coming down and being a member and being part of the membership is about feeling a bit of love in amongst it, and happiness and smiling and laughing and all the rest of it that comes along with it. That's ultimately why you remain a part of your club, a part of your community, is that you want that sort of, relatability and love to come through it all. So I think that's a great place to end it. Thank you very much for joining us, Lynton. It's been pretty insightful about tennis. Like I said, I'm just a fan, not really active, but it's been really insightful. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Isaac.
Cheers.
Baby, can't you see? Sometimes your words just hypnotize me, and I just love your flashy ways.